priests had to continue carrying the load the whole time. They had to continue carrying the load, and they couldn't stop. Y'all don't go anywhere yet. He had to continue carrying the load. He might have been the last person to enter. All right, everybody's in, so now he can come up. The priest can come on up. And he gets into the promised land. You guys scoot in a little bit for me. He gets into the promised land. He was last, but he got in. Amen? He was last, but here's the key. Everybody else got in. He made the way. The priest made the way for everybody else to get in. He opened the door for everyone else to get in. He had to carry the load. It's not easy to be the priest. It's not easy to be the legacy maker. It's not easy to be the one to stand in the gap. It's not easy to be the one that's praying all night when you don't think anybody else is. It's not easy to be the one that's fasting when you don't think anybody else is. The one that's in worship when nobody else is, and you're thinking, my God, why am I praying for them? Why am I worshiping? Why am I fasting when they don't seem like they're putting in any effort? And then we start thinking, but now they're on the front row singing. Now they're leading a group, and we're like, man, are they even ready for that? But what God is saying is, no, it was your prayers, your fasting, your giving, that opened the door, that made a way for them to step into the promised land. And you're thinking, man, I've got left behind. But God is saying, no, you're not left behind. You're still going to make it to the promised land. But I'm using you to get other people into the promised land. I'm using your faithfulness to get others in. And I was thinking, man, you might show up last, but you're going to show up. If you're determined, if you don't quit. But this isn't a game. This isn't something that we're playing with. We don't have time. You and I don't have time. And you're wondering why they're up here. They're going to stay up here for just a minute. But you and I don't have time to take it easy. There's a whole generation looking at us saying, show me the way. There's a whole generation, maybe they're your age, maybe they're not, but there's a whole group of people in our country, they're saying, in the world saying, show me the way. Help me, lead me. How do I get there? How do I make it a way? And God is saying to us, no, we've got to be the way. Jesus is the way, but Jesus is in us. And Jesus is empowering us to be the method by which other people will achieve their dreams. They might make you think, now this generation is tricky. They might make you think they don't want to be bothered. They might make you think they don't want to be left to, just leave me alone, I can do it on my own. But inside their heart, they're crying out, don't let me miss it. Don't let me forget what God has done. Don't leave me here alone. That's what the generation is crying out in their heart. We're so quick to want to get to our promised land and leave. But that generation is saying, don't leave me here alone, I need you. And they need us. The generation coming needs us. Leaving a legacy is all about investing in other people. It's all about pouring in to other people. And for me, there was someone in my life, and I had an incredible family. My mom was absolutely incredible. She's here today, and she brought me to church and did everything that she could. And later in life, I got somebody in my life that made just a huge difference. He was a mentor. And he met a group of guys, and I need you to understand, this guy met a group of guys every Tuesday night. He had a family, 4 kids, was preaching Sunday mornings, was preaching Thursday nights, was doing everything. And he met a group, or Wednesday and Thursday, I don't even remember, all of them. He met a group of guys that every Tuesday night poured into them, prayed with them. In fact, in 2002, that person showed me a sermon. Well, showed a whole group of sermons. It was the Spirit of Python. Anybody seen that message? I think it was 2002, if my memory is right. It was the Spirit of Python. And I watched that message, and it radically changed my life. It impacted me in a radical way, and he knew it. And he took a group of us in 2003 to visit Free Chapel from Augusta, Georgia. Now, we're in Augusta, Georgia. Brought us 2.5 hours to visit Free Chapel. This was in the old building right down the street. And I was visiting from Augusta. Now you understand, I had no idea, no desire to ever be here. I didn't plan on that. I was going to be in the corporate world, be rich, and drive a Viper. Why are you laughing? But in 2003, brought a group of guys to visit Free Chapel in the old building. In fact, I visited this church the very first Sunday in this building because of that influence, and I sat right over there. And I can remember that, and I'm thinking, I'm looking back, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. I still made no effort to come to Free Chapel, other than visiting. I loved the church. And then in 2007, I got a call that would kind of alter my life. It was a call from a job, Capital One Auto Finance. They said, hey, we want to interview for you for a job that you don't qualify for. And it's in Alpharetta. And so I called my mentor and I said, hey, I need you to pray with me. He stopped everything he was doing. He drove to my house and he prayed with me for over an hour on the floor just for a job interview. Why? Doesn't make sense. I'm not sure even he knew it at the time. Why? But it was an interview, and I got the opportunity. I got the job. I didn't move. I started driving. This is how intelligent. Some of you know this story. This is how intelligent. Some of y'all, that's why they're laughing. They know that I drove. I thought I could drive from Augusta to Atlanta every day. Yeah, it's funny now. It wasn't funny then, because look, all my family was in Augusta. All my friends were in Augusta. My mentor, my relationships, my wife's family, everybody was in Augusta. I didn't want to leave Augusta, but I wanted the job. That's where a lot of us are. We don't want to leave where we're at, but we want to achieve the promise. I didn't plan that, but that's good. And so I'm thinking, what do I need to do? And then this is 3 weeks in, and my wife and I are getting beat down, and I'm like, man, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. And I walk in, and this is a Wednesday night. I just driven 3 hours from Atlanta back to Augusta after working full day and driving 2.5 that morning. It's 3 in the afternoon because of traffic. And I got back, walked right into our church, walked right up to the door to go into the young adults ministry, and that pastor stopped me and said, hey, why don't you just move to Gainesville and go to Free Chapel? And I think to myself, I'm like, duh, right? That's a good idea. No, the Spirit was ministering in that moment, and my wife and I that night started thinking about it and praying about it, and I didn't want to move. And there's a longer story to that, and God gave us opportunities not to move, but God told, and my wife got a job opportunity, and God basically spoke to us and said, if you stay here, I'll bless you. If you stay in Augusta, I'll bless you. You can quit the job in Atlanta. My wife was going to get an opportunity that would make more money. I still had a job in Augusta. If you stay here, I'll bless you, but if you go to Atlanta, I'll change your life. And that's what God spoke to us, and I thought, my God, I really am going to be rich and drive a Viper. Praise the Lord. So I'm going. We're going. So Thursday, I wake up. The very next day I wake up and I go to work, and my wife starts sending me houses to look at. And so I leave work early to go to a house, and I walk up to this house, pull up, drive up, and I look and I call the name on the sign. Guess who it was? It was Pastor. Not Pastor then. It was Realtor James Glutty. Keller Williams Lanier Partners Realtor James Glutty. And so I called it. See, the very next day, my mentor said, hey, go check it out. And I said, all right, so Gloria sent me houses. I go, and the very next day, the very first house, it wasn't the second or third. The very first house I pull up to is Pastor James. And obviously, you know how that ended. Built a relationship. God has used Pastor James in an incredible way in this church. Would you agree? Amen. And so I'm thinking, a legacy doesn't just influence or impact you, it goes further. See, I could have looked at that story and thought it's all about me, because look what God did. Years later, the job that I thought, was going to be all about, I lost that job when the economy crashed, and everything fell apart. And I'm not going to get into that story, but some of you even have a similar one. But a legacy isn't just about you. And when you leave a legacy, it doesn't just impact you. It impacts others. And then I look and I built a relationship with Pastor Kendrick, who was here working part-time, and God really spoke to me, and I was working on trying to put together a team here for Free Chapel, and I'm trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Where are we going? What's the vision? And I'm working in discipleship, and God says, no, it's Pastor Kendrick. And I'm thinking, I've got to pitch hiring 2 people. I've got to pitch hiring 2 people. It's hard to get a person hired, not in a bad way. Anywhere, not just Free Chapel, anywhere it's hard to get somebody hired. I got to pitch 2 people because God spoke to me, Pastor Kendrick and Pastor James. And so I pitch it, and because of that relationship, they both got hired. Praise God. Amen. And I'm thinking, man, this is insane. And in case you're wondering, the legacy that was left, the time that was spent, poured in to me, didn't just impact me. It impacted Pastor James. It impacted Pastor Kendrick, even from a distant way. And now it's impacting Pastor Lewis, who's been hired on in the team, doing an incredible job in our Spanish ministry. And an awesome job with the spoken word, too, by the way. He's done an incredible job. But the legacy, it all started with somebody standing. It all started with somebody standing in dry ground. And that person, that mentor, was Pastor Chip, and this is Pastor Chip right here. You probably wonder, hey, I know who that is by now. This is Pastor Chip. This man not only influenced and changed my life, but it was the legacy that he was leaving and building that impacted James and Kendrick and Lewis and so many others. Because now that they touch people, now their ministry goes further. The people that they use and impact multiply and go further. But it started sitting on a gym floor, and it didn't start there, but for my story, it started sitting in a gym floor in Augusta, Georgia, watching The Spirit of Python. And somebody saying, I'm going to spend time and pour into you. All right, thank you guys. Y'all can